Padre Pio saw a woman walk into the church, and he fell to his knees weeping, not because she was ill, not because she was possessed, but because he could see her soul. And that woman's soul was covered in wounds, wounds she herself had inflicted, not on herself, but on her own children, with words, only with words. And when Padre Pio looked deeper, he saw something that made him weep even more. He saw that each wound on the mother's soul corresponded to a wound on the souls of her children. He saw that the words she had spoken had created spiritual chains, chains that linked her pain to their pain, and he saw that until those wounds were healed, neither she nor her children would find peace, not in this life, nor in the next. And what I'm about to reveal to you about the power of a mother's words is something that will forever change the way you speak to your children, or the way you understand the words your own mother spoke to you. Because the truth is, a mother's words have a power that no other words possess. Padre Pio explained that when God created the family, he gave the mother a unique spiritual authority over her children, an authority that comes from the fact that she carried that life within her, that she nourished that life with her own body, that she was the first universe that human being ever knew. And because of that profound connection, a mother's words penetrate the souls of her children in a way that no other words can. When a mother tells her child that they are loved, that word creates a fortress around their heart, a fortress that will protect them for the rest of their lives. But when a mother tells her child that they are worthless, that they are stupid, that they were a mistake, that she wishes they had never been born, those words create wounds that no amount of time can heal, wounds that will bleed for decades, wounds that will affect every relationship, every decision, every moment of that life. Have you ever heard words from your mother that cut you deeply? Have you ever said things to your own children that you regretted the instant they left your lips? Have you ever felt the weight of phrases spoken years ago, but that still sting as if they were uttered yesterday? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you need to hear what Padre Pio revealed about how these wounds work and how they can be healed. In San Giovanni Rotondo, there was a woman who would confess to Padre Pio every week. Every single week she was there, confessing the same sins, asking forgiveness for the same things, and every week she left feeling relieved. But the relief never lasted long, because every week she went back to doing the same things, and the sin she confessed most often was the sin of the tongue. She couldn't control what she said to her children. Padre Pio had known this woman for years. He knew her story. He knew she'd had a difficult childhood. He knew that her mother had been cruel with her words. He knew she carried deep wounds that had never healed. And he knew that she was passing those wounds on to her own children. It was a cycle of pain, repeating from generation to generation. One day, Padre Pio decided it was time to break that cycle. When the woman came to confess, he didn't absolve her immediately. He asked her to be silent, and he began to speak. He began to describe what he saw when he looked at her soul. And what he described brought that woman to tears. He said that he saw scars, dozens of scars, each one corresponding to a word her own mother had spoken, words that had been spoken 30, 40 years ago. But that was still there, still painful, still bleeding when touched. And he said he also saw open wounds, fresh wounds, wounds that she herself was creating, not on herself, on her children. And every time she yelled at them, every time she told them they were worthless, every time she cruelly compared one to another, a new wound would open. The woman asked why she couldn't stop. Why, even knowing she was wrong, she kept repeating the same patterns. And Padre Pio explained something that few understand about the mechanics of emotional wounds. He said that when we are wounded, especially when we are wounded by those who are supposed to protect us, something breaks inside us, and that broken part doesn't heal on its own. It stays there, waiting, and when we are tired, stressed, angry, that broken part takes over and we do exactly what was done to us. Not because we want to, not because we are bad people, but because the wound was never healed, and unhealed wounds always manifest. Padre Pio said that the only way to break the cycle was to heal the original wound, the wound that her mother had caused. As long as that wound remained open, it would continue to bleed, and that blood would fall upon her children. It didn't matter how many times she confessed. It didn't matter how many times she promised to change. The wound needed to be healed at its root. And then Padre Pio taught her a healing process, a process he had learned directly from the Virgin Mary, a process that would take time, that would be painful, but that could break the cycle forever. The first step was to acknowledge each wound, to remember each cruel word her mother had spoken, not to relive the pain, but to bring it into the light. Because hidden wounds never heal. Only exposed wounds can receive the balm of grace. The second step was to forgive, not a superficial forgiveness, not a forgiveness spoken only with the lips, but a deep forgiveness, a forgiveness that recognized that her own mother had also been wounded, that her mother was also a victim of a cycle that stretched back generations, that her mother had done the best she could with the broken tools she had. The third step was to ask forgiveness, to go to her children one by one, to look them in the eyes and ask forgiveness for every cruel word she had spoken, to name the words, to acknowledge the damage, and to ask them to forgive her. The fourth step was to bless, to replace each curse with a blessing. For every cruel word she had spoken, to say 3 words of affirmation. For every time she had said that her child was worthless, to say 3 times that they were precious. For every time she had said that they were stupid, to say 3 times that they were capable. For every time she had said that they were a mistake, to say 3 times that they were a gift from God. The woman asked how long this would take, and Padre Pio said that it depended on the depth of the wounds. Some people managed it in weeks, others needed months, others years. But the important thing was to start, because until she started, the cycle would continue, and her children would do to their grandchildren what she had done to them. The woman began the process that very day, and Padre Pio accompanied her over the following months, and something extraordinary happened. As she healed the wounds of the past, as she forgave her own mother, as she asked her children for forgiveness, the outbursts of anger began to diminish, the cruel words became rarer, and one day, she realized that she had gone a whole week without yelling at anyone, then a month, then a year. The children noticed the change, at first suspicious. After all, they had grown up with a mother who exploded over anything, but little by little, as they saw that the change was real, as they received the apologies, as they heard the words of blessing, something began to change in them too. The wounds began to close, the scars began to soften, and the cycle that had been going on for generations was finally broken. Padre Pio used to say that this woman was one of the greatest miracles he had ever witnessed. Not because God had done something supernatural, but because a person had had the courage to face their own pain in order to not pass it on. She had had the humility to recognize that she was wrong. She had had the strength to ask for forgiveness, and she had had the persistence to continue, even when it was difficult. But wait, because what I am about to reveal to you is even more profound, because Padre Pio did not only see the wounds caused by explicit, cruel words, he also saw the wounds caused by words that seemed innocent, words that many mothers say, thinking they are helping, but that are actually destroying. There was a mother who came to Padre Pio, concerned about her son. The son was in his early 20s, but couldn't do anything with his life. He couldn't hold down a job. He couldn't maintain a relationship. He couldn't make decisions. He lived paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes. The mother didn't understand what had happened. She had been a dedicated mother. She had given everything to that son. She had protected him from everything. She had done everything for him so that he wouldn't suffer. And now he was an adult who wasn't functioning, and she didn't understand why. Padre Pio looked into the soul of that young man, and he saw something different from the wounds he had seen in others. They weren't wounds of cruelty. They were wounds of overprotection, wounds caused by misguided love, wounds caused by words that seemed affectionate, but that were actually prisons. He asked the mother what she said to her son when he was a child, and she began to list them. She told him to be careful with everything. She said that the world was dangerous. She said that he could get hurt. She said that she would do it for him, so that he wouldn't have to strive. She said that he was too fragile for certain things. She said that she would always be there to solve his problems. And Padre Pio explained that each of these phrases, said with love, had created a chain around the soul of that young man. Chains that prevented him from flying. Chains that made him believe that he was incapable. Chains that convinced him that the world was too scary a place for him to face alone. The mother had wanted to protect her son, but in doing so, she had robbed him of the chance to develop strength. She had robbed him of the chance to learn from his mistakes. She had robbed him of the chance to discover that he was capable of more than he imagined. And now, he was an adult, trapped in invisible chains that his own mother had placed. Padre Pio said that this type of wound was more difficult to heal because it didn't come from malice. It came from love. And how do you convince a mother that her love is hurting? How do you make her understand that too much protection is as damaging as abandonment? The cure in this case was different. It wasn't about forgiveness. It was about letting go. The mother needed to learn to let go of her son. She needed to learn to let him fall so that he could learn to get up. She needed to learn to be silent when she wanted to rush in to help. She needed to learn that the best gift she could give him was the confidence that he was capable. And the son needed to learn to free himself. He needed to learn to question the internal voices that said he was fragile. He needed to learn to take risks, even with fear. He needed to learn that mistakes were not the end of the world. They were the beginning of learning. Padre Pio accompanied this family for years, and it was a slow process, painful. The mother struggled against the instinct to protect. The son struggled against the fear of failing, but little by little, the chains were loosened. The son began to make decisions on his own. He began to take responsibilities. He began to make mistakes and to learn from them. And the mother learned to observe from afar, to cheer in silence, to be available without being intrusive. But there is a third type of wound that Padre Pio saw in the souls of children, a wound caused not by what the mother said, but by what she didn't say. The wound of silence. There was a man who came to Padre Pio in deep depression. He couldn't feel joy. He couldn't feel connection with anyone. He felt empty inside, as if something fundamental was missing that he couldn't identify. Padre Pio looked into his soul and saw a void, not wounds, not chains, a void, a space that should have been filled, but that was completely empty. And he asked about his mother. The man said that his mother was a good person. She had never hit him. She had never yelled. She had never said cruel words. But she had also never said that she loved him. She had never said that she was proud of him. She had never said that he was special. She had never hugged him for no reason. She had never looked him in the eyes and said that he was the best gift she had ever received. And Padre Pio explained that a mother's words of affirmation are like water for a plant. Without water, the plant doesn't necessarily die, but it never blossoms. It survives, it functions, but there is always something withered about it, something that never reached its potential. The emptiness that the man felt was the emptiness of the words that were never said, of the affirmations that never came, of the compliments that never arrived. He had grown up without knowing if he was loved, without knowing if he was valued, without knowing if he deserved to exist. And now, as an adult, he carried that emptiness everywhere. The cure for this type of wound was the most complex of all, because the mother had already died. There was no way to go back and ask her to say what she had never said. There was no way to redo a childhood. There was no way to fill what should already be full. Padre Pio taught that man to seek in God what his mother had not given, to hear from God the words that his mother had never said, to let divine love fill the emptiness that maternal love had left. It wasn't the same thing. It never would be. But it was enough. It was enough to stop surviving and start living. And here is something crucial that Padre Pio taught to all the mothers who came to him. He said that a mother's words are not just words, they are prophecies. When a mother tells her child that they are capable, she is speaking success into their life. When a mother tells her child that they'll never amount to anything, she is speaking failure. And these pronouncements, they hold power. They have spiritual power because a mother wields authority over her child. Words spoken by someone in a position of authority, they carry a weight that other words simply cannot. That's why a mother's responsibility is so huge. Every word she utters is shaping her child's future, opening doors or slamming them shut, building bridges or digging chasms. Padre Pio used to tell a story about two mothers, each with a child facing the same struggle. Both children had learning difficulties in school. Both were taunted as dumb by their classmates. Both would come home in tears. The first mother, when her child came home crying, would tell him that the other kids were right. She'd say he needed to try harder, that if he was smarter, he wouldn't be going through this. She'd tell him she was ashamed of his grades. The second mother, when her child came home upset, would wrap him in a hug. She would tell him the other kids were wrong, that he was intelligent, in a different way. She'd say she was proud of him, regardless of his grades. She would say that together they would find a way to overcome these challenges. 20 years later, Padre Pio encountered both men, now adults. The first had become a bitter man, unable to hold down a job, unable to believe in himself. He constantly repeated that he was dumb, that he couldn't achieve anything, that he was a failure. His mother's words had become the soundtrack to his life. The second man had become a successful entrepreneur. He had discovered that his intelligence was practical, not academic. He had found a field where his abilities shone. And whenever someone doubted him, he heard his mother's voice, telling him that he was capable. That voice had become his armor. The difference between the two wasn't talent. It wasn't opportunity. It wasn't luck. It was the prophecy they had received from their mothers. One received a prophecy of failure, the other a prophecy of success, and each lived according to that prophecy. And there was an even more disturbing case that Padre Pio witnessed, the case of a mother who inadvertently cursed her son's marriage. This mother had an only child, and she loved him in a possessive way. She didn't want to share him with anyone. When he started dating, she criticized all the girlfriends, said none of them were good enough for him, claimed these women were only after his money. She said he was making a mistake, that she knew him better than he knew himself. And when her son finally announced that he was getting married, the mother said something terrible. She said that marriage wouldn't last, said his bride would abandon him, said he would bitterly regret it. She said one day he would come crawling back, begging forgiveness for not listening to her. The son got married anyway, But his mother's words were etched into his mind, and every time he had a fight with his wife, no matter how small, he heard his mother's voice saying the marriage wouldn't last. Every time his wife went out with her friends, he heard the voice saying she would abandon him. Every time they had an argument, he heard the voice saying he would regret it. And those voices began poisoning the marriage. The man became jealous for no reason. He began to mistrust without cause. He started creating problems where none existed. And the wife, who initially tried to be patient, became exhausted. She became frustrated. She became unhappy. 5 years after the wedding, they divorced. And when the mother found out, she told her son that she had warned him, said she always knew it wouldn't work out, said that now he could come back home and they could live as before. But the son didn't return home. The son fell into depression because he knew deep down that the marriage hadn't ended because of his wife. It had ended because of the voices that his mother had planted, the prophecies his mother had made. He had sabotaged his own marriage, fulfilling his mother's prophecy. And when this man came to Padre Pio, he was destroyed. He asked if there was a way to undo what his mother had done, asked if there was a way to silence those voices, asked if there was still hope for happiness. Padre Pio explained that the words of a mother's curse have real power, but so do the words of a blessing, and that the first step was to confront the mother, not with anger, but with truth, to tell her the damage that her words had caused, to ask her to repent, to ask her to withdraw the curse and replace it with a blessing. The man did that, and the mother, initially I denied it, said she was just protecting her son, said she was right, said it was the ex-daughter-in-law's fault. But when the son showed her how her words had become voices in his head, when he showed her how he had destroyed his own marriage because of those voices, something broke in her. The mother cried. For the first time, she saw what she had done, saw that her possessive love had destroyed her son's chance at happiness, saw that her words of protection were actually words of curse, and she asked for forgiveness, and she blessed her son, and she said she hoped he would find true love, that she would support whatever woman he chose, that she would be a loving mother-in-law, not a toxic one. And something extraordinary happened. As the man heard his mother's blessings, the old voices grew fainter. As he received affirmation instead of curses, his head became quieter. And a few years later, he met another woman. And this time, when the old mother's voice tried to return, the new mother's voice was stronger, and the second marriage flourished. Padre Pio said that this case showed both the destructive power and the restorative power of a mother's words. The same mouth that had cursed had later blessed. And the blessing had been stronger than the curse, because the blessing comes from God, and the curse comes from fear. But there is a specific set of phrases that Padre Pio said a mother should never say, phrases that cause such deep scars that they can take a lifetime to heal. And I need to share these phrases with you now, not to blame you if you've ever said any of them, but to warn you so that you never say them again, or so that you recognize if you've ever heard them and can begin the healing process. The first forbidden phrase is any variation of, "I wish you had never been born." This phrase attacks the very existence of the child. It tells them that their life was a mistake, that the world would be better off without them, that they are a burden. Children who hear this carry an existential void for the rest of their lives, always wondering if they deserve to exist, always feeling like they're in the way. The second forbidden phrase is, "Why can't you be like your brother or your sister?" This phrase teaches a child that they aren't good enough as they are, that they need to be someone else to be loved, that their mother's love is conditional. Children who hear this spend their lives trying to be someone they're not, losing their identity, envying their siblings, never feeling at home in their own skin. The third forbidden phrase is, "You're just like your father." When said with contempt, this phrase associates the child with everything the mother hates about the father. And the child can't stop being their father's child. So they grow up believing that there's something fundamentally wrong with them, something they inherited and can't change, something that makes them unworthy of love. The fourth forbidden phrase is, "I do everything for you and this is how you repay me." This phrase turns maternal love into a debt. It teaches the child that they are always owing, that they can never repay enough, that they're a parasite, sucking without giving anything in return. Children who hear this grow up with chronic guilt, always feeling like they need to compensate for existing. The fifth forbidden phrase is, "If you do that, I'll die, or you'll be the death of me." This phrase places the responsibility for the mother's life and happiness on the child. It's a weight that no child should ever carry. Children who hear this grow up paralyzed, incapable of making their own decisions because they're afraid of destroying their mother. Padre Pio used to say that these phrases were like spiritual knives. They cut the souls of children in ways that leave permanent scars. And many mothers said these phrases in the heat of the moment, without thinking, and forgot about them the next minute. But the children didn't forget. They never forgot. But now, I need to tell you what Padre Pio revealed about how to repair the damage, because maybe you're a mother who recognizes that you've said things you shouldn't have, or maybe you're a child who still carries wounds from the past. And in both cases, there's hope, there's healing, there's a path. For mothers who have wounded, Padre Pio taught 3 essential steps. The first step is to stop justifying yourself. Many mothers, when confronted with the damage they've caused, start making excuses. They say they were tired, they were stressed, they had a difficult childhood, the children were difficult, and all these things may be true, but none of them erases the damage. Recognizing that you've hurt isn't about guilt, it's about responsibility, and only those who take responsibility can heal. The second step is to ask for forgiveness specifically. Don't just say, "I'm sorry for everything," but say, "I'm sorry for calling you stupid that day. I'm sorry for saying you were a burden. I'm sorry for saying I wish you were different." Name the moments, name the words, show that you remember, that you understand the weight of what you said. The third step is to replace the curses with blessings. For every negative word that was said, say positive words, repeatedly, insistently, until the new words start to overwrite the old ones, until the voice of blessing is louder than the voice of the curse in the child's memory. For children who have been wounded, Padre Pio taught different paths depending on the situation. If the mother is still alive and willing to acknowledge the error, the path is dialogue. Go to her. Tell her how the words affected you. Give her the chance to ask for forgiveness. And when she asks, forgive genuinely. Don't hold it as a weapon. Don't bring it back in future arguments. Forgive and let go. If the mother is still alive but doesn't acknowledge the error, the path is unilateral forgiveness. Forgive even without the apology. Not for her, for you. Because holding a grudge is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. Forgive and free yourself from the prison that the other person built. If the mother has already died, the path is surrender to God. Take the wounds to Him. Ask Him to heal what humans can no longer heal. Ask Him to fill what has been left empty. Ask Him to be the mother you didn't have, because God is Father and Mother. And what was missing on one side, He can complete on the other. Padre Pio taught a specific prayer for children wounded by their mother's words, a prayer that he himself had received in a vision and that had helped hundreds of people. The prayer was like this: Lord, I come to you carrying wounds that I received from the one who should have protected me, wounds caused by words, wounds that still bleed, wounds that prevent me from being who you created me to be. I forgive my mother for every word that wounded me. I release her from my judgment. I deliver her into your hands. And I ask that you heal what she broke, that you fill what she left empty, that you repair what she destroyed, that you be for me the perfect mother that every heart desires. Amen. Padre Pio used to say that this prayer should be prayed every day for 40 days, and that each day a layer of the wound would be healed, and that at the end of the 40 days, the person would still remember the words, but they wouldn't hurt anymore. The memory would remain, but the poison would be removed. And he also taught a prayer for mothers who had wounded their children, a prayer of reparation that should be prayed looking at a photo of the child or, if possible, in their presence while they slept. Lord, I have sinned against this child that you entrusted to me. I used the authority that you gave me to hurt instead of protect. I said words that left marks that only you can heal. I ask forgiveness for every cruel phrase, for every unfair comparison, for every curse disguised as worry. I retract every negative word I said about this child, and in their place, I declare that they are loved, that they are capable, that they are a gift, that they will prosper, that they will find their way, that they will be happy, heal the wounds that I caused, undo the knots that I created, and teach me to be the mother that you want me to be. Amen. Padre Pio used to say that this prayer had real power, that they weren't just words. They were spiritual decrees that activated God's power to heal what humans had destroyed, and that many mothers had seen transformation in their children after praying this prayer sincerely for 40 days. There was a mother who had a completely destroyed relationship with her daughter. They hadn't spoken in years. The daughter had cut off contact after a terrible fight where the mother had said unforgivable things. And the mother, proud, had never apologized. She thought the daughter was the one who should come back. When this mother heard about Padre Pio's prayer, she decided to try it. She started praying every night, looking at an old photo of her daughter. And every night, she cried. She remembered the words she had said. She felt the pain she had caused, and she asked for forgiveness, even knowing that her daughter couldn't hear. On the 32nd day, something unexpected happened. The daughter called for the first time in 3 years. She said she'd had a strange dream. She dreamed her mother was asking for forgiveness, and she woke up with an unexplainable urge to call. Her mother told her about the prayer, and the daughter, in tears, said she had felt every word, even from a distance, even without knowing it was being said. They reconciled. It wasn't instantaneous. It took time to rebuild trust, but the prayer had opened a door that seemed permanently closed. It had created a bridge where there was only abyss. Padre Pio used to say that this happens because in the spiritual world, distance doesn't exist. When a mother prays for her child with sincerity, the prayer reaches them instantly. It crosses miles, it crosses walls, it crosses years of silence. Because a mother's love, when purified by grace, has direct access to her child's heart. And if you're a mother listening to this, I implore you, pay attention to the words you say, pay attention to the tone you use, pay attention to the expressions on your face when you talk to your children, because they are recording everything, every word, every look, every sigh of disappointment, and these recordings will play in their head for the rest of their lives. You have the power to fill your children's heads with voices that lift them up or voices that tear them down. You have the power to create armor or create wounds. You have the power to bless or to curse. And this power is given by God. And one day, you will answer for what you did with it. Padre Pio said that on Judgment Day, many mothers will be shocked, not for crimes they committed, not for obvious sins, but for the words they said to their children, words said in the heat of the moment that they forgot the next minute. but that their children never forgot. Words that shaped entire lives, words that closed doors that never opened again. If this teaching touched your heart, if you're a mother and realized you need to change, if you're a child and realized you need to heal, then I invite you to act now. Don't wait another day. Don't let another opportunity pass. Because every day that passes is another recording being made, another wound deepening, another chain strengthening. And if you want to support this work, if you want me to continue bringing these revelations from Padre Pio that can save families, you can click the golden heart of the super thanks down below. Each support allows more mothers to hear this message. Each support is a chance to break a cycle of pain. Each support is you participating in the healing of families you'll never know. Now tell me in the comments, do you still carry wounds from words your mother said? Or are you a mother and recognize that you need to ask your children for forgiveness? Share your story, because your testimony may be exactly what another mother or child needs to hear to start healing. May Padre Pio intercede for all mothers who are struggling. May the Virgin Mary teach all women how to be mothers who bless. And may every word that comes out of a mother's mouth from today onward be a word that builds, never a word that destroys. God bless you. Watch your words, and may Padre Pio bless you.